That's it. Yes, it's war.
Yes, shots are being fired left, right, and center as US authorities go to war against crypto. And the Securities and Exchange Commission, with its dark overlord Gary Gensler, are once again leading the charge. But if you thought Gary and the SEC were going after the bad guys, think again. Instead, they have some of crypto's most well-respected names in their sights as they seek to protect investors from the horrors of staking and fully regulated stablecoins. So today, I'm going to run through what Gary and friends have been up to and consider what it means for the future of the crypto industry in the US of A and beyond. Now, the two companies in question that have been targeted are the Kraken Exchange and Paxos, the company that issues Binance's BUSD, as well as its own USDP stablecoin and the gold-backed PaxG token. That's right, Kraken and Paxos, two crypto companies that are not only among the oldest and most well-established in the industry, but which have also jumped through every regulatory hoop there is. In short, if these two aren't safe from attack by the powers that be, then no crypto company is. Now, Kraken, of course, is well known to almost everyone in the space. It's the OG crypto exchange founded by Jesse Powell back in 2011 when Bitcoin was a mere toddler. Jesse is, of course, an OG himself. Now, he recently stepped down as Kraken's CEO, though he's still actively involved with the company, and he's well known for being an outspoken advocate for the crypto industry as a whole. Perhaps too outspoken. Anyway, being a US-based exchange, Kraken has to comply with all manner of regulatory requirements, in much the same way as Coinbase does. Now, interestingly, Kraken was aiming to join Coinbase by going public last year, but shelved its plans to do so as the crypto market plunged. See also Circle. Now, one final thing to note here is that Kraken has long been the standard bearer when it comes to security and transparency. It first issued proof of reserves in 2014. That's right, 2014, and submitted to a full audit last year. It's also never been successfully hacked. Seriously, Kraken doesn't get nearly as much credit as it deserves for the way it's done things over the years. And yet, despite its unmatched status as a regulated, transparent, and secure exchange, Kraken is taking incoming fire. The IRS has just demanded it hand over data about its users, a summons that apparently dates back to 2021. But, more pressingly, the exchange recently reached a settlement with the SEC to pay a $30 million fine and shut down its crypto staking service for US customers. On the 10th of February, the SEC tweeted out, quote, "Today, we charged Kraken with failing to register the offer and sale of their crypto asset staking as a service program, whereby investors transfer crypto assets to Kraken for staking in exchange for advertised annual investment returns of as much as 21%. If you're wondering why the SEC objected to Kraken offering this service, well, it comes down to a familiar old chestnut. Quote, "Two Kraken entities, Payward Ventures Inc. and Payward Trading Limited, agreed to immediately cease offering or selling securities through crypto asset staking services or staking programs and pay $30 million in disgorgement, interest, and penalties." Ah, yes, securities. I'm sure I don't need to remind you that Gary Gensler and company have a big old bug up their collective backside about how the majority of crypto assets are securities, and therefore any company that offers such securities needs to register with the SEC in order to sell them. You may recall how Gary was at pains to point out on the very day of Ethereum's merge that he considers proof-of-stake cryptos to be securities. And well, this is him being as good as his word, I suppose. And while we're on the subject of staking, I guess now is as good a time as any to address this frankly excruciating video that Gary posted to Twitter shortly after the settlement with Kraken was announced.
What does stake have to do with our securities laws? That's S-T-A-K-E, not S-T-E-A-K.
Geez, Office Hours with Gary Gensler, the sitcom that's playing on every channel in hell. Anyway, let's move on to another screen appearance from Gary, however, this time on CNBC's Squawk Box show on Friday. Gary came on to explain why the SEC was taking this action and said,
and the problem was they were not disclosing to the investing public the risks that the investing public was entering into.
Apparently, all they needed to have done was fill out, quote, a form on our website, and they would have been A-OK. Really? Fill out a form? Well, Jesse Powell was not impressed, tweeting acidly, quote, oh man, all I had to do was fill out a form on a website and tell people that staking rewards come from staking. Wish I'd seen this video before paying a $30 million fine and agreeing to permanently shut down the service in the US. How dumb I look. Gosh. Now, did Kraken really push ahead with their staking service without checking to see whether there were forms that needed to be filled out? I mean, that's the sort of thing you could have imagined Mt. Gox or FTX doing, but Kraken? Given everything else they've had to do to keep the US bureaucracy on side in the past, I, for one, don't buy it. Now, as Jesse and many others have pointed out, the lack of clear regulatory guidance from the SEC and others has made it impossible for Kraken and other US-based crypto companies to know what they can and can't do. This is what makes the SEC's recent actions so infuriating. They create an atmosphere of ambiguity and then pounce when someone tries to offer a service they don't like the sound of. This is the regulation by enforcement approach that is causing serious damage to the crypto industry in the United States. Anyhow, the response to this latest bit of regulation by enforcement has been swift. When rumors began to circulate that the SEC was moving to ban staking for US retail customers before the settlement with Kraken was announced, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong tweeted, quote, I hope that's not the case, as I believe it would be a terrible path for the US if that was allowed to happen. He's not wrong, and we'll come back to some of the other things he mentioned in that tweet thread in a moment. Even more significant than Brian's intervention, however, was one from within the SEC itself, when Hester Peirce, one of the few pro-crypto voices within the agency, also hit out at the move. Hester released a statement saying that, quote, a paternalistic and lazy regulator settles on a solution like the one in this settlement. Do not initiate a public process to develop a workable registration process that provides valuable information to investors. Just shut it down. I couldn't have put it better myself. Jesse Powell himself echoed these sentiments and, when pressed by a fellow Twitter user on why Kraken hadn't contested the action in court, offered this. Quote, they picked the bottom of the bear market, waited for us to do a 30% layoff. They have all our financials, lots of leverage. Maybe we looked weak. This is more about FTX than it is us or staking, but the timing was not great. Of course, the F word was never far away in all of this. FTX, the rotten apple spoiling the whole damn barrel and demonstrating both the cause and effect of this whole situation. FTX sat in its Bahamian paradise just beyond the bounds of US jurisdiction. Sam Bankman-Fried was cozy with Gary Gensler, meeting with him more often than with any other regulatory official. FTX operated where it did and was able to cause the mayhem that it did because the regulatory landscape in the US remains so unclear that it made sense to go offshore. Now, I don't say this to excuse SBF and his gang of clowns in any way, nor am I implying that if only they'd been able to set up shop in the US, then they would have done things properly and all would have been just fine. What I am saying, though, is that the SEC's approach to working with and regulating the crypto industry has been a disaster and helped create the conditions wherein the FTX meltdown could happen. Back to Brian Armstrong, quote, regulation by enforcement doesn't work. It encourages companies to operate offshore, which is what happened with FTX. Now, before we draw any conclusions from this sorry affair, let's also take a look at Paxos, which is also feeling the heat from Gary and his goon squad. Paxos may be less well known than Kraken, but it too has been around for a long time, having been founded in 2012, and has also filled out the necessary mountain of paperwork to gain the licenses required for it to operate. Based in New York, it works with clients that include Bank of America, Binance, PayPal, Credit Suisse, and MasterCard, among many other big names, and states on its website, quote, our regulatory-first approach is non-negotiable and has enabled us to pioneer many landmark accomplishments in the crypto and blockchain space. Its achievements include launching itBit, the US's first regulated crypto exchange, and the world's first regulated stablecoin, which had the ticker PAX before rebranding to USDP. Paxos is, for want of a better term, a right little goody two-shoes when it comes to crypto companies. But not goody two-shoes enough, it would seem. Rumors started circulating late last week that the New York State Department of Financial Services was primed to throw the book at Paxos. But then on Sunday evening came the news that the SEC had got in there first. The agency issued a Wells notice to Paxos, which is essentially a warning that it intends to take legal action in the near future. Paxos now has 30 days in which to respond and try and persuade the SEC that it shouldn't take matters any further. The subject of the Wells notice? Yep, you guessed it, unregistered securities. In this case, the BUSD stablecoin that Paxos issues on behalf of Binance. And if you're wondering how an asset that's designed to maintain a stable value can be classed as something with an expectation of profit, well, you're not alone. According to the Wall Street Journal, quote, the notice alleges that Binance USD, a digital asset that Paxos issues and lists, is an unregistered security. It couldn't be determined if the SEC notice is specifically related to Paxos's issuing of the coin, the listing of the coin, or both. And as I was about to shoot this video, the news came through that Paxos has been ordered by the NYDFS to stop issuing BUSD. The market is duly tanking as I record this. So it remains to be seen why exactly the SEC is going after Paxos over BUSD, but it could be motivated by a desire to attack Binance indirectly, or it could be part of a wider crackdown on stablecoins in general, or both. Whatever the reason, it's a cause for concern, and if it is part of a general offensive against stablecoins, then the folks at Tether and Circle should probably start bracing themselves for a knock at the door at some point too. But Guy, I hear you say, Tether isn't based in the US. Surely it's beyond the reach of Gary's cold, dead hands. Well, you're right to an extent, but there is the uncomfortable fact that $39 billion of Tether's reserves that back USDT are being managed by Cantor Fitzgerald, a US financial services firm. For Binance and Paxos, read Tether and Cantor Fitzgerald. The SEC's jurisdiction may not stretch beyond US borders, but it sure can stymie operations for the likes of Binance, Tether, and others on US soil, which is going to be a big blow to any crypto company given the size and importance of the US market. And there are also rumors that the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, yet another tentacle of the US regulatory vampire squid, has also been leaning on Paxos, although the latter denies this. Quote, to clarify speculation, Paxos has not been asked to withdraw its application for a national trust banking charter from the OCC, nor has it been denied the charter. Paxos continues to work constructively with the OCC. Now, this last point is particularly scary because it could relate to something known as Operation Choke Point. The OCC regulates banking entities in the US, and there are now well-founded fears that a concerted effort is underway by the current US administration to cut off the crypto industry from the banking sector. Operation Choke Point was an Obama-era undertaking which sought to do just that to a number of industries that the then administration disliked, such as online poker and payday loans. Although discontinued once Donald Trump took office, there is mounting evidence to suggest it is being resurrected to suffocate crypto. Now, I'll be doing a full video on Operation Choke Point on our main channel in the next day or so keep your eyes peeled and prepare to be disturbed. So, what does all of the above mean for the crypto industry in the US and the cryptoverse more broadly? Well, in short, there are a lot of implications for both. For starters, it's just got a whole lot harder for US crypto holders to participate in staking. Yes, Coinbase still offers its staking services, but surely the SEC will be coming after them soon too. The upside to this is that Coinbase is much better resourced to fight the SEC in court than Kraken is. Indeed, Brian Armstrong tweeted on Sunday, quote, Coinbase's staking services are not securities. We will happily defend this in court if needed. Go ahead, Gary, make my day. Mind you, the last time the SEC went to court against a big crypto company, it was with Ripple, and well, we're still waiting for a resolution to that saga more than 2 years on. Yes, there's DeFi and liquid staking protocols like Lido and Rocket Pool, but Gary and co have been making noises about going after them at some point too. Heck, there's no guarantee the SEC won't go after the proof-of-stake cryptos themselves in the future. And remember, the likes of Coinbase and Kraken are among the biggest validators on a great many proof-of-stake blockchains, meaning these projects themselves stand to be affected by the SEC's actions. This is all going to have implications far beyond the bottom lines of US-based exchanges. And leaving aside those big established entities, put yourself in the shoes of someone looking to start up a new crypto project in the US. Would you? Or would the lure of somewhere that's actively trying to encourage crypto companies be a bit too strong? Why set up in a country where the regulators seem to be making it nearly impossible for crypto-related businesses to get a bank account? The US seems to be doing all it can to make itself as crypto-unfriendly as possible. This, of course, spells opportunity for those countries that understand the value crypto can bring and that are drafting workable regulations in order to encourage the industry to their shores. The UAE and Singapore spring to mind, and even the UK is drafting crypto regulations that look alarmingly well thought through. America's loss could be their gain. But as much as other parts of the world are proving way more receptive to crypto than the US is, it would be naive to think the industry can really thrive without US involvement. The states provide key personnel, infrastructure, and crucially funding to the wider industry. And if that is forced to change, then the shortfalls in all three will have to be made up from elsewhere. That won't be easy. In short, folks, there's a good reason why I don't think the recent crypto price pump is the end of the bear market. Yes, some things may have improved since the darkest days of 2022, but there are still dark clouds overhead. And when one of those clouds has the grinning face of Gary Gensler emblazoned on it, you know the storm is far from over. Crypto has been at war with US authorities for some time now, but a ceasefire is still a long way away.